coming in at number 94 would be Detroit Lions defensive end Trey Flowers. And, I can already see the comments coming in. I'm wearing a Lions shirt. I'm a Lions fan, so the pick must be biased. The list must be biased. Trey Flowers must actually be trash. And, he doesn't deserve to be in this discussion at all, right? Well, that couldn't be further from the truth because, to be completely honest, I was not a huge fan of the Trey Flowers signing. I thought $90 million over 5 years. I thought that was, a drastic overpay, and I still do think that it's slightly rich in my opinion. But even 2 weeks ago, I didn't have him on the list. As I mentioned in my intro video, I've done this list now 3 times, twice on my own and once with my friend Mike. And those first 2 times, I didn't even seriously consider him for the list, And it wasn't until that 3rd attempt when I really pulled out everybody's stats and was giving everybody a fair shake and was watching film on all the guys that I realized his production is undeniable and needs to be recognized on this list. It seems almost sacrilegious to have him above guys like Everson Griffin and Brandon Graham, who have been Pro Bowl to all pro level players for the last 8 to 10 years. But those last 8 to 10 years don't accurately depict, the reality of the situation today, because Trey Flowers is a more productive player than those guys. And, just for example, I pulled some stats to kind of illustrate that before we get into the film. Last year, so in 848 stats, Everson Griffin had 40 quarterback hurries and 20 stops against the run per Football Outsiders. Well, Trey Flowers in 705 snaps had 47 QB hurries and 29 stops against the run. So what does that mean? In basically 150 less snaps, he had 7 more hurries and 9 more stops against the run. I'd be remiss not to recognize that, even as blasphemous as it might sound, to have him above guys like Everson Griffin and Brandon Graham. And you also have to consider that he is in one of the worst situations in the league. He doesn't have a Daniil Hunter, Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, and Harrison Smith on his team. It's Trey Flowers and Trey Flowers. There's not a lot of talent on that Lions defense, so teams can focus on him and really key in on him, and they're still not able to stop him. He's still putting up great numbers, and as a result, hopefully, we can see why he deserves to be on this list together as I show you guys film, and really we talk about what makes him so special. First things first, the main attraction to a guy like Trey Flowers is his schematic versatility. We've seen him now play in a 3-4 defense, play in a 4-3. He can line up pretty much anywhere from out as a wide 9 all the way into, here we see him as a 3-tech lined up against Chiefs right guard Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. And, watch how, even though he's going up against the bigger and stronger interior offensive lineman, watch how he's still able to shoot those hands into Tardif's chest, kind of gain control of him, and then, peek around him, find where the ball carrier is, locate Darrell Williams, and make a really nice play on the ball carrier to, pop the ball out, force a turnover for the Lions, flip the field, and really put the Lions in a prime position here to upset the Chiefs, which they almost did. They're up all the way through the 3rd quarter on the eventual Super Bowl champion Chiefs. And it's plays like these by Trey Flowers that, put the Lions in a position to win that game. I guess speaking to that schematic versatility here Trey Flowers is lined up in more of his natural position as a 5-tech against Packers tackle David Bakhtiari. What I really wanted to talk about here was just his ability to read and react and be keyed into kind of what the offense is doing, right? So any D lineman on a play-to-play basis, you typically have 2 primary keys. So you have what's called a visual key, which is kind of who you're lined up on, who you're directly looking at and reacting to with your eyes. But you also have a pressure key, which is, what you're feeling, and you're going to balance those 2 in relation to kind of dictate your actions, right? So let's just use A'Shawn Robinson as an example here. So his visual key is number 77, pressure key number 75. If number 77 down blocks and goes away from him, A'Shawn's going to be looking at that initially, right? And he's going to realize that, but at the same time, he's going to feel number 75 with that left shoulder, and he's going to know that he's being down blocked on. The play's likely going out here to the outside. He has to get over the top of that down block if he wants to make a play, right? So Trey Flowers here, he doesn't have like an immediate pressure key that you see, but what you're going to see happen initially right off the snap is, they're going to have Geronimo Allison, now Trey's teammate, I guess, try and block down on him as off that first step, David Bakhtiari takes, a drop step, he opens up and he's going to pull. So what does Flowers do? He knows that David Bakhtiari is going to take me to the ball because he's pulling. So he doesn't even get eyes on Geronimo Allison initially here, but look at how just instinctively he's able to read what Bakhtiari is doing and react to it and take on Geronimo really just out of the corner of his eye. And use great technique and shoot that hand in there and get that right hand inside Geronimo's chest. And then he's able to fight over the top of the block, chase down Aaron Jones, and make a great play. And what's also really, really nice about that play is how Green Bay is running just a garbage jet motion the other way. And Trey Flowers, he completely ignores any of the noise, and he's just so locked into what his responsibilities are on every given play. What you'll see is, on that motion, it's actually kind of a tricky play because they're going to fake that jet sweep handoff and then toss it out to Aaron Jones. And what you're going to see is, look at how we do have players being held up by that jet motion. Well, not Trey Flowers. Trey Flowers is already racking and already fighting over the top of that down block by Allison and eventually making the play and preventing what could have been a big rip. And while Flowers is so great at reading and reacting, what he's also great at is stacking and shedding. So for those who are unfamiliar, it's kind of the basis of all run defending in my eyes. It's where, off the snap of the play, you're going to shoot your hands, try and get them in the offensive lineman's chest to stand them up and really control them. And then what you're going to do is bench press them off of you, get extension so that way you can peek your head, find the ball carrier, and then disengage and go make a play, right? Well, Trey Flowers, he absolutely excels at that. So here he is going against former Detroit Lion Riley Reef. And what you're going to see is initially off the snap, just look at him get those hands right into Reef's chest. And, there you go. He's initially in his chest, but then he benches him off of him, right? And then you see him, he's already taken that one hand out of there because he doesn't know what's exactly happening. But then as he locates Dalvin Cook, he uses it to help him get off of Riley Reef and make the play in space. It just plays like these. He's making on a super consistent basis that really make him one of the premier run defenders in the league at that defensive end spot. And I say on a consistent basis, well, here he is in that very same game going against those very same players. And, watch how we could call this stack and shed or read and react, because what we're going to see here is Reef tries to initially reach Trey Flowers, and Flowers takes the accurate measures. He knows that he has this C gap, so he cannot give up contain and let there be a crease there. So what he's going to do is he's going to keep fighting for his outside, but at the same time he is getting his hands in Reef's chest and creating that space so that way he can disengage in case he's able to find Dalvin Cook. And watch exactly what happens. So what you're going to see is, boom, he reads that initial kind of drop step and crossover by Reef. He knows that Reef's trying to get outside of him. So what does Trey Flowers initially do? He's fighting against Reef to keep contain of that edge, but at the same time he's starting to bench press Reef off him. There it is, you can see it. And then what is he doing with his head? You see him peeking over Reef because he's trying to get his head in the backfield to locate Dalvin Cook, because what could happen is, the play is designed, as you can see by CJ Ham, the play is designed to go outside, but Trey Flowers knows that he's in a pretty good spot here. So if Dalvin tries to cut this up in that B gap, he's going to be able to make the play. And what happens? Exactly that. He's able to shed that block and bring down Dalvin in space to prevent what could have been, if you really look at the rest of the Lions defense, this could have been a huge run. And this had 80-yard run written all over it by Dalvin Cook, one-on-one against a defensive back. What happens? Trey Flowers prevents that. A really nice play against Riley Reef. And here it is again. I'm going to keep pounding it because this is really what makes Trey Flowers so special. You're going to have him going against Charles Leno here, Bears left tackle, and you're going to see the same thing. You're going to see him shoot those hands right into Leno's chest, stand him up. He kind of shocks that blocker immediately, gets Leno standing, and then as you can see, Trey Flowers, he's already trying to peek. He's already trying to find, where's Dave Montgomery going? And, is this going to be a kick-out play, or is he trying to kind of log that defender and let Montgomery get outside? Trey Flowers doesn't know that immediately. So what does he do? He keeps hands on. He keeps on riding that block, and then he realizes, boom, Dave Montgomery's cutting inside. What do I got to do? Disengage, make the play. Just beautiful stuff by Flowers. And, this is almost the same thing. This time I just called it edge setting because now instead of having that extra outside linebacker outside of him, he is the end man on the line of scrimmage. So here he is going up against Cam Irvin of the Chiefs, and we're going to see is almost the same play. This time it's against LaShawn McCoy, and oh man, that is just beautiful on contact there. You're going to see the great hand placement and fight Cam Irving as Cam's trying to reach him. Gets Cam Irving's feet all tangled up, bench presses him off of him, as you can see, brings that right hand over to kind of break that bridge between the two of them, and then explode to make a play on LaShawn McCoy. And it just plays like these game in, game out, week in, week out that really set Trey Flowers apart from a lot of other defensive ends in the league, because there's very few guys who are able to consistently and really violently locate those hands. And even if they are able to get those hands, they also have to have the strength to get the extension and the awareness to disengage and make the play. And And those are all intangibles that Trey Flowers brings every game for the Detroit Lions. But don't think for a second that Trey's only good at using his hands as a run defender. He's also great at, placing them and utilizing them as a pass rusher as well. So here he is lined up against Oakland Raiders backup right tackle David Sharp. And, the only thing sharp about this rep is what Trey Flowers is able to do with those hands, because watch him off the snap, just locate those hands right into David Sharp's chest and just boom. Initially, Sharp doesn't even have his hands on Flowers yet. Flowers is about to execute a beautiful bull rush because he's right there. And that's the last thing you want as a pass blocker. You always want to try and get a good punch, use your length, and keep them, like an arm's length distance away. Well, that's the exact thing that Trey Flowers is fighting against here. And he's able to just bull Sharp back. And then, just when it looks like he might be able to anchor and regain leverage on this, he hits a very nice swim move with that right hand coming over the top, and is able to track down Derek Carr to bring him down for the sack. And, it's plays like these that maybe he's not getting the crazy sack totals on. He's not really a double-digit sack guy. But, again, 47 pressures, that's some of the most consistent production of anybody in the NFL. And, I talked about the hands. I talked about all that stuff. But really what I haven't talked about is his power, just his straight, raw strength that he offers as a pass rusher. Because he's not always getting just wins based off explosiveness and athleticism like a lot of these younger pass rushers are. Many of his wins just come from raw strength. So here he is going up against, former Patriot teammate Nate Solder, and watch how he's just able to throw Solder like a sack of potatoes, and he has no regard for Solder at all. Just as he plows right into him, toss him, and goes right through him basically on his path to Daniel Jones. It's just beautiful stuff because he senses that Solder is off balance, and he's able to hit kind of that push-pull move to finish the job. Solder started off balance. Well, I'm gonna make him even more off balance and have him taste the turf pellets while I force the fumble and potentially have a game-changing play for the Lions against the Giants. I don't know if Flowers and Solder didn't like each other or something, but here's another great example of Trey utilizing his power. What you're gonna see here is this time, instead of getting both hands in the offensive lineman's chest, he's only gonna locate that one left hand, but sometimes that's enough. And that's what you're going to see here, especially when Nate Solder's technique is all out of sorts. Initially he gets that right hand of Trey Flowers off of him, and, that's all well and good, but then Trey's able to get that left one in his chest, and, that's not a position you want to be in as no lineman. You ideally want to have your hips square to the line of scrimmage and your feet shoulder width apart. Well, Trey's got him flipped to where they're not even perpendicular to the sideline. They're so turned, and the feet are crossing over each other. Both of his feet are in the air at one point here. It's just pretty rough on Solder's end, but that's what Trey Flowers does to you. He's so strong at that point of contact that he can take even some of the highest paid left tackles and make them look silly on plays like this. And here's another really good example. Flowers not only using his hands, but this time bending the edge as well. I know that's more of a speed rusher tendency, but that's not Flowers' strength, but it's also not necessarily a weakness either. So what you're going to see here is him hit a really nice club and swim combo over the Buccaneers' backup kind of left guard and left tackle, Earl Watford. And, once he clears Watford's hips, which I'll try and get a good pause at, really right there, what you're going to see next is him fight through his contact, plant that outside foot, really sink his hips, redirect his body, and, dip that shoulder to bend a really tight edge here and almost get the kind of the game-changing sack on Jameis Winston. Again, look at him. You saw him plant that foot. Now just look at the angle that he's rushing the passer at. See how explosive he is coming out of that. And there's really nothing that you can do against that as a tackle. And just look at, he almost brings down Jameis for, again, as I said, a huge sack and what potentially could have been a game-turning safety here in this Lions and Buccaneers late-season matchup. And no, Flowers isn't a dominant speed rusher by any means, but really just that threat of him potentially bending a tight edge, it has to be in the back of your mind as no lineman. So what I want you to do is watch how he really transitions a nice get off and jump on the snap count into what turns into just a really nice and dominant punch here on, the Chiefs all-pro right tackle, Mitchell Schwartz. What you're going to see is, first of all, just look at him in comparison to everybody else on that D-line. He's got 1 to 2 steps on everybody else. So like I said, he has a great get off here, and Mitchell Schwartz knows that, and he knows that Trey can bend a tight edge if you give it to him. So just before contact, what you're going to see is he kind of flips his hips, and as I said earlier, you want to keep your hips squared to the line of scrimmage as much as possible. And Schwartz flips them, and he gets his feet narrow, And Trey, realizing that, he's just going to bull right through him. And even though that's a Pro Bowl, All Pro level offensive lineman, Trey just gets a great punch in there, really chucks him to the side. He's able to shed that weak attempt at a block, honestly, and get a hit on Pat Mahomes and really force an erratic throw on what could have been an easily converted touchdown here for the Chiefs. And you'll get to see it again from this view. Just look at how he places those hands right in Schwartz's chest and really blows him off that point of contact. And it's just great stuff like this that even though he's not a dominant speed rusher, he's still able to do on a pretty consistent basis. And I called this last slide speed to power, but I could have called it just putting it all together, So here he is lined up against David Sharp, and you're going to see, again, that good initial get off on the snap, to which David Sharp has to he's got to open up his hips and worry about that speed rush, and Trey Flowers is able to process that in his head, react to that block, and as a result, he's going to place those hands right in Sharp's chest and kind of go for a bull rush. Well, Sharp knowing that, here I should probably let you guys catch up. Sharp knowing that, he has to try and anchor, and when he goes to anchor, he drops that outside leg, gives Flowers a soft outside shoulder. Trey recognizes that. What he's going to do next is fight to an edge, use his hands to get off of Sharp's block, and then again you see the edge bend. You see that explosiveness out of and through contact right into Derek Carr, forcing another bad throw. So no, even though the sack isn't there, and a lot of times for Trey the sacks aren't there, the production is still there, and really the disruption is still there, and that's why he is number 94 on my NFL Top 100. And as always, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, make sure you leave a comment. Did you think I did a good job convincing you that Trey is, in fact, the 94th best player in the NFL? Or maybe are you a Lions or Pats fan who've seen that consistent disruption on a week-to-week basis and think it should have been higher? Or are you the other way, and that lack of sack production and bringing the quarterback down on a consistent basis, should that take him off the list entirely? It's a really interesting discussion to be had, but ultimately, unless you guys subscribe and really tune into the rest of the series, you won't know who he should have been higher or lower than on the list. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to watch this, but I'm mic'd up, and I'm mic'ing out. Peace, guys.